This time we have Mary Murphy here with us. And we'll just get right into it.
Please do.
Okay. So this is, our first question is, why are you seeking the superintendency here in Marlborough? And what is it about the combination of your skills and the needs of the district that you think is a good match at this time?
Why do I want to be superintendent in the Marlborough Public Schools? I am not seeking any superintendent position. I am only seeking the Marlborough Public Schools superintendent position. I'm committed and dedicated to this district. I am seeking this position because I believe at this time I am the right person to continue the work that we have been doing for the last few years. I believe with every bone in my body in the strategic plan, our strategies for improvement, and all the actions that we have taken over the last few years. I'm particularly proud of a lot of the work that we've done. I am proud of the team, and I know that not one single person has all the skills enabled to be the superintendent we all need. But I believe that I can lead the team, that together we can be the superintendent and leadership team that the schools and the district need at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, sorry, wasn't ready for that. This time is me. Well, I think everybody in this room agrees that student learning is paramount to the success of any district. And with that said, though, we understand that targets, learning targets, student growth, determining responsibility for success is under debate, as it always has been, I think. Would you please share your thoughts on how districts should hold themselves accountable, as well as anything the state requires, for academic progress or improvement, and what steps should be taken when those benchmarks aren't met? And this should be easy for you. Please share an example from your professional life.
So I want to first start off by saying that how thrilled I am internally about the use of learning targets in that question. We have been talking about learning targets and success criteria. So what is our target for learning, and how are we going to measure the success? And I think that's the essence of that question. So our learning target is a little different than what a teacher's learning target would be, because that's only going to be focused on that particular lesson and what the outcome is for that particular day. On a district-wide, our learning target is going to be what we want to accomplish at the end of a cycle, be it the end of the year or 3 years or 5 years, depending on how much we're planning, and then how we're going to measure that success, which I think is another part of your question. We measure our success by the same data points that the state measures us through accountability and through MCAS. But I think that it's time to also start some conversations, because we know those data points are important, but on a day-to-day basis, the way we meet the needs of the students is through our MAP growth testing, about our formative assessments we have in the classrooms. The teachers are meeting in teams and looking at the student work and identifying the next steps they're going to be taking. The MAP growth, how we're identifying students that need additional before or after school, the summer academies, vacation academies that we're doing, focused on math or ELA or science support, especially at the secondary level. So all those extra steps we're doing, those are data-driven, but also individual student-driven as well. They're not just one particular day, they're measures of multiple different times throughout the year. Did I miss a part of that question, the last part?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just said share an example from professional life, but
Okay.
it's up, you know.
So we're particularly proud about we've been on a path of using student data to drive our instruction, what we're doing daily. And we started that a number of years ago with FastBridge. And if we did nothing else well during that time, we learned systems on how to make sure that all students were being assessed, and we were looking at the data. We took it to the next level, and we added the high school to that when we introduced MAP growth. And that is an assessment that all students are taking 2 to 3 times the high school's doing it, and for the freshmen and sophomores, in order to identify students that are projected to be meeting their benchmarks, grade level. The students that were measuring growth, so during the shutdown, they may still be lagging behind in grade level, but they might be making tremendous growth, and we know that, so they're on a good path. And also, for the high school students, it projects the MCAS performance levels, so we know students that need additional interventions for those students in order to achieve that high school diploma.
Thank you.
Earl?
All right. Tell us about your experience working with children and families who don't look like you, or speak the language you do, or do not have the economic advantages you do. How have these experiences shaped your view of public education and its mission?
So I don't think, so I know the staff at Jarrick know about me from when I was principal there, but not a lot of people in Marlborough know that I purposely interviewed in Marlborough because my leadership degree was in anti-racism leadership. And that was one of the focuses that I had at a time that there was only a few programs that had it, and it happened to be UMass Boston. So it was one of the focuses of that leadership program. I have always tried to work with families and students that don't look like me. When I was a charter school administrator, it was in Somerville. When it was time to leave there, I came to Marlborough at a time where the population was transitioning. I was talking to Lynn Medallion earlier, and I think I learned so much from Lynn and Michelle over the years, and from the EL teachers in this district, about English language development, about servicing students. They are great teachers, and most of the staff here are great learners. We used to do a lot of, or more, events specifically targeting the bilingual parent population, something that we've been talking about with the principals. I was doing it earlier today. We would have specific content meetings with bilingual parents, so we would be presenting what is MAP growth, why do we give it to the students. One of the topics we did one time was about access testing. And no, we were not crazy, but yes, we know you just arrived in this country 2 days ago and we're assessing your child. And this is what this is about. It helped, it opened the doors for dialogue. So those things are in my background and my experiences. I purposely want to work with all students, all families in Marlborough, those that look like me, those that don't look like me. And as an educator, I'm trying to learn more on how to best meet the needs of those students and those families.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that. So we kind of know a lot about what you have already done, but moving into this position, there's different roles and responsibilities from what you've done in the past. And particularly, we know that engaging families in general, but also more specifically the EL families, has been a challenge for us. And what do you think you'd like to do that might be different from what we've already tried?
I think that our starting points would be to talk about the successes that we've had in the past. Because we've had some great successes in the past. We just, honestly, I think that it was being driven by a small group of people, and I think we need to expand that group. There's a number of different groups in the city, that when it happens with PTO boards, when there's a small group doing all the activities, you cannot sustain that, and I think that is part of our problem. I think, though, when you're talking about parent engagement, I'll give you an example of the parent engagement. We were talking about earlier, and Calliope and I were sharing the example of, you talk about business partnerships. And when I first started in Marlborough, I was a member of a parent involvement committee, district-wide. It was something, Rosemary picked up the phone and said, congratulations. And we worked with Price Chopper, and we did math activities throughout Price Chopper. So it was a community, it was using the facilities in the community. Yeah, do you remember?
I do remember.
And that was a great success,
Yeah.
those types of activities. And somehow along the way, it was one of those things that it wasn't as popular the second year, and we didn't do it. So maybe we don't do it every year, but maybe we do it every 3 years or something. Like those types of activities are for all families and would increase the involvement across. And I think that's just a small example of some of the things that we should be brainstorming, what was successful in the past, what potentially, it would look different, because the world hasn't stopped in the last 10 years or 15 years, but how we can change slightly and build on those successes we used to have. We're still, that Marlborough Hospital Summer Fun Day, we're going to revive it in one way or the other.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Denise?
All right, mine has a few stages to it.
Okay.
What are your strategies for fostering a positive relationship with the school committee regarding making educational policy for the district, setting budget priorities and formal spending plans, and engaging in collective bargaining, and also creating a solid administrative and policymaking team that supports the district's goals and objectives?
So how are we going to work as a team? Yes, as a team. As you know, I've been a member of the team, and I would expect that not only myself, but members of the leadership team would also be involved, continue to be involved in activities such as policy, negotiations, building the budget. That's something that I think I would lead, but I could not, the perfect example of things that I'm not going to do alone. I would never attempt to bring forward a budget without working with Mr. Diaz for a large number of hours before it came to you. I think, though, that it might just be an impression, I may be incorrect, but things like retreats with the superintendent and the school committee to talk about some of the issues and some of the priorities. The budget priorities, I think that there may be some educational priorities. The Superintendent Bergeron has presented, and Mr. Diaz has presented multi-year projections of budget requests. If there's any changes to that, I think that I would bring them forward and we would have a discussion before it was formally presented, and looking for feedback and saying that we were looking for an addition or a change or we want to restructure something that we're doing. That more likely, though, would come out of the strategies for improvement. So if we're looking for something like the social and emotional needs of the students, and we decided that we needed to reorganize the leadership, or we have a position that's been on hold, could we talk about fast-tracking it? That would be a discussion that we could talk about besides that. Policy, generally, I think that often it's a combined list, and I think that we should continue that of the educational needs or policies that we need to discuss. Currently, things like the attendance policy and how to make up work, those types of things are not a simple decision. You need some feedback from myself and from other leaders in the district on what it looks like at different grade levels in order to really define those policies. Did you say impact bargain or negotiations?
Collective bargaining.
Collective bargaining, so negotiations, being a member of the team.
Yes, Catherine.
Okay, so you hit upon it,
Okay,
the budget.
okay.
So can you tell us about your experience, which you already mentioned about working with Mr. Diaz,
Yes.
but experience and vision for being able to develop a budget? You've called out a few of the points of your experience of what you've done in the past, and then understanding some of the trajectory. But how do you then vision kind of like moving that forward and then advocating for the budget? Because you're familiar, obviously, with what we have going on here, right? It's not just here at this table, but getting all of the right parties in place and things like that, working with city council and the mayor. And then really evaluating whether our resources and how we've used that strategy and how have we hit our achievement levels, and then how do we use that budget to get to that point? So
Yeah, and I think we all are aware of the fact that we don't know what the long-term impact the pandemic is going to have on our students academically and emotionally, and what the needs are going to be moving forward. Starting point for budget is I understand, and I know that all our members of the team understand that the city is very good to the schools. They support us tremendously, and we will do whatever we can to support the needs of the city as well in all areas. So that means working and communicating with them so that they're aware of our budget needs and we're aware of their ability to finance what we need. So I think that that relationship has been worked on for the last few years, is very strong, and I would like to continue to make sure that that's maintained and continued. Personally, the way that I have built budgets in the past, is I've done it as a building leader, I've done it managing multiple million-dollar grants, not the whole district. I would definitely depend on Mr. Diaz to help with that. There are some things that, as we talk about, earlier today, we were talking about supporting the social and emotional needs of the students and what that looks like, and having a larger discussion by that. There may be some identified needs that come out of that. So then it would be a discussion on the leadership team, what is the priority? And then coming to the school committee and saying, the leadership team is looking at this priority. Where do you think that we should, or we have 5 positions that we're willing to trade, but to have those discussions about what needs that we've identified and looking for support in approval of that. Staffing, we know that we're going to, we talked about the fact that at some point, class size might need to be increased if we run out of room. So having those discussions, we're not asking for additional classroom teachers. We be looking for interventionists or something like that. Hopefully world language. Those types of long-term needs, looking at where they go. But before they come forward to the committee or there's any request, I would like to have the time so that as a team, the leaders across the district could meet discuss the needs across the district, and then help us all identify the priorities moving forward, aligned to the strategies for improvement.
I'll stem off quickly because I don't want to hog up too much here, but you've had a lot of experience from a grant standpoint and needing to work with, say, Title I, Title II, different areas. And can you highlight a little bit of that expertise and how that has been a benefit and how you envision utilizing that benefit for this district moving forward?
So the federal grants, I'm not going to mention the ESSERs because those are one-time grants, but we generally have Title I, which we use to fund some interventionists at each schools, but we also fund specific professional development. We, at the kindergarten and first grades, we have been doing the power hours for the last couple of years, and we've had a coach that has come in and helped those teachers specifically look at that early literacy data to group students to be able to target the instruction. Also, she has been helping them because that is brain-based research, so looking at some different body movements so that the students, there's no downtime, everyone's on task and everyone's doing something, whole body learning. So that's one of the things, but also some professional development as well. Title II, for a number of years we used to reduce class size. That's no longer really allowed. So exclusively it's used for professional development. We've used that to fund things such as our data course. Our consultant, Dr. Warner, who worked with teachers, administrators, and did a workshop for the school committee. Trainings for new evaluators to take a course in supervision and evaluation. Guest speakers to come and present to new staff, year 1 and 2 seminars. So mentoring and induction programs as well. And some books, mini course stipends, professional development stipends, co-teaching stipends if people need some stipends to plan things. Title III is the EL grants, federal grants, and that can only pay above and beyond the school day. So they do summer school busing for that, before school, after school programs. Family liaisons come either from that or immigrant grant, so combined depending on the year and how much we get. And then some experiences so that they plan on Saturdays and things to expand the EL students' horizon of what's available. And then Title IV has to go to either safe schools, so ALICE training is that. Also, Second Step, we've been doing a lot of replacement of that material. Technology, so we've been focusing on engineering for that. So Kelly Hall and Riley have been getting robotics and Legos and makerspace things, so expanding, so all 4 schools. The construction certificate program at the high school has a whole list of tools for next year, so things like that. Also some stipends to do things like additional potential robotics during summer school for the second graders. So it enriches, it enhances, and extends the educational programming we offer all students.
And thank you. That was kind of where, to me, that's a part of the budget, if you will, that's not necessarily your first thought or everyone's first thought. Yeah. But it's, especially for our district, it's a pretty critical element that has really helped our student body and our district with many of the issues from a diversity standpoint. So, thank you.
Welcome.
Can you tell us about the experience you've had with collective bargaining? What is the best role for the superintendent, and what do you view as the role of the school committee in collective bargaining?
So I think that the role of the superintendent is a member of the team. And I don't think that the superintendent is the only member of the leadership team from the school side that's a member of that team. The experience that I've had in bargaining is I have been a member of the team in just about every negotiations that has happened in the district. I have been a member of the team on the management team for IBB for the last 2 cycles, I think. And then I was called in an earlier cycle to help with some information. I have been a member of the bargaining team for, I think, just about every unit in this district. I look at the role of the superintendent to provide or help support and give the school committee information about the needs of the district, and to provide any needed information that you have, and to advise from the school lens. You have your own lens as well. But once again, I am one member of the team, and I am leading the school-based team.
Back to me. Can you give an example of where you personally used the evaluation process to improve performance and/or motivated teachers and administrators? And there's a second part, 'cause there's always a second part. What would you do to ensure that people that work under you as evaluators would use the evaluation process objectively and consistently on the people they evaluate?
So the second part of your question, because of the way the systems are set up, takes a lot of time and effort. And I'm just going to say, and there are easy ways to start that by running a report and making sure that everyone has done it. But the only way that you could really look to see what is being done for evaluations is to look at the evaluations. So that is something that everyone in the district knows, that I oversee the evaluation process currently. That is a role that I have taken over for a number of years. It was something that Maureen Gulick and I did together, and I've been doing on my own for a couple of years. In Marlborough Public Schools, supervision and evaluation is about growth. Point blank, we have a joint evaluation committee. That joint evaluation committee has both MEA members and administrators on it. And I am on that, and Michelle has been on that. One of the first things that we did a number of years ago is we asked ourselves, how are we doing with the evaluation process in Marlborough Public Schools? We said, we think we're doing okay, but how do we know? And so we started surveying the membership. And we asked questions I don't think we really wanted to hear the answer to, but asked about trust. Because you can't have growth if you don't have trust, if you don't have communication. And quite frankly, the results were much more positive than we expected them to, and that was great. But we still identified some things we could work on, and one of them was communication. So we spent a couple of years we did training for all evaluators. We invited teachers into the room to hear what the training was saying. And they said, you make a decision. Either your system is about growth or is it about accountability? And we decided ours was about growth. Educators want to grow, the evaluators want to grow. We all want to grow. We want to grow together. Other times that there is needs for improvement, yes, but the whole idea is to open that communication. We did the training in how to effectively communicate with each other. We added steps to the evaluation process, asking people to have conversations in person in order to build those relationships, and also to avoid seeing something written up and not understanding. Is there a tone there? What is this saying to me? So having those conversations. There's a couple of us on the joint evaluation committee that are about to send out another communication to members of the community, to the committee, because we'd like to do an advisory, just reminding them it's not required, it's not part of the contract, but best practice is to have these conversations. Just so that when we send these types of communications out across the whole district, we send them out to everyone so that everyone knows what's being said. We don't have secrets. We don't have one team against another. We're all focused on the same outcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I get the long one.
Okay.
It's a long setup, but it's really only one question.
Okay.
A student has complained to the police that he was harassed in a locker room by members of his lacrosse team. The abuse included pushing, hazing, verbal taunting, and possibly actions with sexual overtones. The parents of the alleged victim want a criminal complaint issued and investigated. The alleged victim is under 18, and the perpetrators may also be under 18. A local reporter gets wind of the story from a student source inside the school and has some names of involved persons. Mm-hmm. You've had a mixed relationship with this news source. The reporter contacts the superintendent with some of the following questions. Okay. Can you confirm that it was a lacrosse team? Where was the adult supervision? Has the school department issued the appropriate mandated reports on the victims? We're told this has happened before. What can you tell us? If you stonewall us, we'll report that as well, because we think some of the students are not eligible for protection as juvenile sources. What are some of the things you think about as a superintendent, and how do you respond?
So I would start by saying that I would hope that that this would not be the first time that I would be hearing something like about this incident. But that being said, that it's always a parent's right to report to the police if they believe something has happened. That hazing in the state of Massachusetts could be a crime. And we have hazing as included as part of our student handbooks, as does every high school or secondary school in the state of Massachusetts. It is usually, I believe in Whitcomb School, it was a level 3 offense. I would probably assume that would be the same at the high school as well. Since you're talking about a discipline issue, that is a protected student record. And so I'd have to tell the reporter that you're talking about something that is protected under the student records law, and I cannot give you any details. Beyond that, potentially, I don't know if the police could. I would hope that if a family went to the police department, I would already know about it because the police department would have notified the school if there was an allegation of something that happened on property. Also recognize the fact that in Marlborough, we have a really good working relationship with the police. And generally, if there's a police investigation going on, we will have a school investigation going on, but they would need to be doing their own if there was if they had to investigate. That all background wouldn't stop the fact of still, if something happened in our school, it would be very serious. There would be concerns, there would be an investigation. If it was going to be reported in the press, we would be communicating that first to the school committee and then to the community at large, that we were aware of an incident that was being reported, and we were investigating it, and as soon as we had some information that we could report, we would be sharing that. I'm sure that I would also contact our council to make sure that that was the appropriate response, and if I could share some more information on that. I know that happens in other, it has happened in other districts. I think we would all be really hurt and upset if we heard it happening to any of our students or in Marlborough. So there would be those feelings that we would all have to process as well. But we would be communicating not through the press, but through the superintendent's office to the families and the communities.
That was our last formal question. Does anybody have any other follow-up questions that they'd like to ask? Yeah.
And this one's really only specific to your situation versus some of the other candidates.
Okay.
Were you to be selected in that position, do you have in mind, or at least some semblance of a plan as to your job?
Assistant superintendent?
No, I mean,
there's-
if you were to become
Yeah.
superintendent,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have you.
Right.
So,
Right.
do you have, you don't have to necessarily be specific about it, but do you have ideas as to how the district would go forward with?
I think that, so I would definitely have some ideas to share, but I do also believe that technically, like the superintendent, the assistant superintendent comes under the school committee. So yes, so it would also be a discussion with members of the committee to see, but absolutely, yeah.
All right, can I go for another one?
Go for it.
Okay. So, obviously, you've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
And you've created relationships all across the district. This role, you're going to be in a position that's going to be different. And sometimes you're going to run into opposition, where you're going to need to make some of those tough decisions that some of those folks that may have been your friends may not necessarily always appreciate. Have you thought about that?
So that would not be the first time.
Well, and I guess that's where, I mean, it's, as any of us, when you're taking on more leadership roles, it puts you in a very different role than where you've been. And have you thought about how you look forward into having to handle some of those situations? Because inevitably, something's going to come up.
Yeah, I have, and completely, honestly, I've said that I'm not going to change. I am who I am. And we all know, members of the teams, our strengths and weaknesses. I have made difficult decisions in the past. And people know that I'm still going to treat them and still respect them. And it has nothing to do with the decision in isolation. I had a assistant principal say to me before that I'm Mary Murphy. I'm not the best friend, right? So I've always walked that line that I have this is my professional work, and I care, and I have the passion, and I have the love, but I'm not best friends with colleagues, right? I am the leader. That's tough. That can be lonely. But it allows me to make decisions or to say, I don't think that this is right, when I don't think it's right. On the other hand, I think that the people that I've worked with are never afraid to disagree with me or to say things like, I don't think we should do it this way. I think we need to do it that way, and to argue with me about it. And I think that's a great way to come to see consensus. I ask questions not because I'm challenging somebody. I'm asking questions because I want to learn, and I want you to convince me that what you're saying is right. So I'm not concerned about changing roles because I'm still going to be as dependable, I'm still going to be as committed, I'm still going to be as fair as I possibly can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I just wondered if anything Mary'd like to tell us.
Is there anything you'd like to tell us that?
So the only one last thing is, and I think I said it earlier today to the teachers. It was almost 20 years ago. I walked into a room in Kane School, and John Collins was there, and Paula Thornton and Eileen Barry, and they interviewed me for the position of assistant principal at Kane School. And it was one of the luckiest days of my life. Eileen said, I remember that, but she didn't remember that I got home and a message from John Collins before I even got home. And it was just like, I couldn't believe that I had just won the jackpot. And every day since then, I've won the jackpot. I get to come back here. I get to work with the staff and the students in this community. And I just want to say how thankful I am. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna take a break.